Hello, everyone. This is Beata Leah, immigration attorney at Minsky, McCormick, and Halligan in Chicago, an immigration law firm. And the purpose of our session today is to discuss what to do if you are in the United States as a visitor, business visitor, or as a tourist, or some other temporary status, and your status is expiring, or perhaps has already recently expired, and you can't leave the United States. What should you do if you can't leave because of the coronavirus? Your country is either on lockdown, like India, or even if it's not on lockdown, there are other practical implications that prohibit you from traveling. Either you're afraid to travel because of the spread of the virus, you're afraid that you might get sick, you might be exposed to the virus, members of your family might get sick, or it's just not practical to leave because the flights are just too expensive. There aren't very many flights to travel anywhere for that matter right now. And it's not safe and it's not affordable for you to leave the United States. So what should you do if you can't leave because of the coronavirus, and you're in the United States and your temporary status is soon expiring or perhaps has already expired? So first, I wanted to talk about how much status do you typically have in the United States as a visitor? And how do you know when your status is going to be expiring? So most business visitors and most tourists who come to the United States are admitted into the United States for a period of up to 6 months. Now, this applies to individuals who came to the United States on a B1 or B2 visa, meaning they have that kind of visa stamp in their passport that they obtained from their consulate. Or they changed their status to a B1, B2 from within the United States and they were given 6 months admission. So the default for most business visitors who come on a B1 or most tourists who come on a B2 is to be admitted into the United States and allowed to remain in the United States for a period of 6 months. Now, there are exceptions. If you come to the United States from a visa waiver country, there are 39 countries that have a special agreement with the United States. And pursuant to that agreement, they do not need a visa to come to the United States. They don't have to go to the consulate to first get a visa to come in. They can come in simply using their passport, the citizenship from that country. And just as an example, that includes Australia, Poland, the United Kingdom, Spain, Austria, Germany, Taiwan. Again, many countries, 39 in total as of right now, are allowed to come to the United States without a visa. And in those cases, those individuals are not admitted for 6 months. The default in that case is to be admitted into the United States for 90 days. Now, if you came on a visa, on a B1 or B2 visa, and you were admitted for 6 months, or if you're a Canadian, what's interesting is that Canadians also don't need visas. They are not considered to be members of the Visa Waiver Program, but they do not need visas pursuant to a special treaty we have with them. And they're also allowed to enter for 6 months. So if you fall into the group of people who are generally admitted on a B1, B2, or you are Canadian and you're admitted into the United States for 6 months, you are allowed to file an extension of that status in the United States. If, however, you came to the United States pursuant to the Visa Waiver Program, or what some people call ESTA, and you're only admitted for 90 days, you are not allowed to extend your status in the United States. But we'll get into that in a little bit. I guess the first question, though, is how do you know how much time you have? What's really frustrating is that Customs and Border Protection, the officers that you encounter when you're coming into the United States at the airport or any port of entry, don't always stamp your passport, especially if you're Canadian. And even if they stamp your passport, they don't always note in your passport how much time they've given you. And so it is very common for people not to know how much time they have to stay in the United States. And the way to figure that out is to, well, always first check with your passport. Just see if they did make a notation in your passport. But then go to the CBP website. The Customs and Border Protection website has an I-94 record lookup. An I-94 is your arrival record that tells you online how much time that particular officer gave you when you came in. And that is your official record. No matter what it says in your passport, whether you did or did not have a stamp, your I-94 record online, again, if you look up CBP I-94, you will find the website, and it will tell you what your status is and how much time you have to remain in the United States. And all you need to look that up is your passport. And so that record will determine how much time they gave you. Now, again, I mentioned in the beginning that typically you're given 6 months if you're coming as a business visitor or tourist on a B1, B2 visa, or if you're Canadian, and you're getting 90 days if you come pursuant to the Visa Waiver Program or ESTA. But that's not always the case. That's the default, but that particular officer that you encountered when you came in can cut that period short. And that can be cut short because, for example, your passport might be expiring, or you told them that you only needed to come in for a month or 2 months, and so they only gave you what you requested. Or just the discretion of that particular officer. They can cut short your period of admission just because. So again, it's very important to check your I-94 record online to verify how much time you were given the last time you were admitted into the United States. And again, 6 months is the default in most cases, 90 days if you're Visa Waiver Program or ESTA, but it could be less than that. And it is not a 6 month in the aggregate for the entire year. The 6 months is given every time you enter the United States. Likewise, if your Visa Waiver Program, it's 90 days every time you enter. So it's not like you're given a total for the entire year or for any certain period of time. It's per trip. Okay, so now you have determined that your I-94 record shows that your status will soon be expiring or perhaps has recently expired, and you again can't leave under these circumstances. It is not safe to travel. It's not affordable to travel. It's not recommended that you travel right now. Apologize. What do you do? So the way of extending your status again depends on whether you came in on a B1, B2 visa or as a Canadian, or if you came on a Visa Waiver Program. If you came on a B1, B2 visa or as a Canadian, then you are able to extend your status from within the United States by filing an application to extend your status, I-539. This application is free online, meaning you do have to pay a filing fee, but the form itself is accessible for free online. You do not have to pay anyone to obtain the form to file this application. Again, you do have to pay a fee to the government for them to process your application, but the form itself is free. And you can file that application by mail or online. And you want to file it timely, meaning before your status expires, meaning the USCIS, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service, should receive it before your status expires. That's considered to have been filed timely. Now, the USCIS has closed their offices to the public, but they are still working remotely, and the service centers continue to accept applications. So despite the pandemic, you are and you should file an extension of your status with the USCIS to extend your stay lawfully. While that application is pending, you are able to remain in the United States lawfully without accruing any unlawful presence or any penalties for having filed that application timely. Now, it could take months for you to get a decision on that application, but again, for as long as it takes the USCIS to review your application, you are in the United States lawfully pending a decision on your extension of status. And what do you submit with that application? Well, again, there's a form. It's the I-539 form. There's a fee that can be paid by credit card or by check or by money order. It can be paid online as well. There is certain evidentiary documents you have to include. You have to include proof of your status. So again, you have to explain to the government when your status expires and that all of the time that you've been in the United States since your last admission has been lawful. You have to provide evidence regarding why you're seeking that extension. So you have to explain why it's not practical or safe for you to leave the United States. And obviously, under the circumstances right now, I mean, I think they're going to be reasonable. But again, you do have to provide some kind of explanation of why you're seeking this extension of your status. And again, that extension can only be requested in a 6-month increment per extension. And so that should include a statement from you about why you initially came to the United States to perhaps visit a friend or visit a family member for other social events, other business reasons. And now, again, it is just not possible for you to depart on time. And so you're seeking an extension temporarily while all of this coronavirus, this crisis hopefully slows down and we flatten the curve and you're able to depart timely. You should provide evidence of your ties to your home country to show that after the extension is granted, you will ultimately depart the United States. And that can include proof that you have a job outside of the United States, that you have a home outside of the United States, that you have a business outside of the United States, whatever that may be. And then finally, you should also provide evidence of your financial ability to support yourself in the United States for the subsequent 6 months while you're waiting to leave, basically. And there is no specific minimum amount that you need to have in order to convince the USCIS that you will have enough money to stay in the United States without working, without authorization, because people who are business visitors and tourists do not have the permission to work in the United States. So you have to convince them that you are able to remain without working. And so, again, there is no minimum amount, but just think about it logically. What is it going to cost you to stay in the United States for the next 6 months, for example, if that's how long it takes for you to leave safely? And provide evidence that you either have something close to that amount in a bank account, in a savings account. Perhaps you're getting paid by your employer abroad while you're waiting to leave. Maybe you're being supported by a family member in the United States who will provide evidence of their financial ability to support you while you're here. So again, you want to establish that you're not going to be working in the United States without authorization while you're waiting to leave safely. Now, what about the people who recently had their status expire and were not able to leave because of the coronavirus? And again, their status has already expired, and yet they're still here. They're remaining in the United States now unlawfully. What about those people? Well, fortunately, there is a section of the immigration law that permits late filings. And the USCIS just this week issued a public notice reminding the public that they will be flexible in light of the coronavirus in accepting late applications. Now, that doesn't mean that they're guaranteeing that they're going to accept your request to accept a late filing. But again, it does exist under the law, particularly in circumstances where the reason for your late filing was due to circumstances beyond your control, like the coronavirus. Maybe you got sick. Maybe you had a flight to leave in March, but your flight got canceled. Or again, maybe you're from India and your country shut down and said, no one's coming in. Again, all of those are circumstances beyond your control. And if you weren't able to timely file that extension, but are now finally either healthy enough to do so, or you've collected enough money to do so, or now you realize that you really won't be able to leave soon and you really need to do something about this, they are able to consider the circumstances and accept a late filing and perhaps approve your request for an extension under these extraordinary circumstances. So again, it is not too late if your status has already expired. Now, you will still have to explain and provide evidence of why it is that you were unable to file that application timely. They have to be able to weigh the fact that this is a late application versus the circumstances that prevented you from filing it timely. And you do need to provide a statement explaining it and provide evidence of it. So if it's because you got sick, provide a letter from your doctor. Or if your flight got canceled, provide evidence that your flight got canceled. Or if your country, again, is locked down, provide proof, an article, some kind of government notice that indicates that your country was not allowing anybody in. Whatever the case may be, explain to them why they should accept your late filing and forgive the late filing, and that these are circumstances beyond your control. So again, in summary, the bottom line, check your I-94 record online to verify how much status you have been given at the time of your last admission into the United States. Again, if you just search for CBP, that's Customs and Border Protection, I-94 record, you will find it. The exact website address, just so you know, is i94.cbp.dhs.gov. If your status will soon expire and you are unable to leave the United States, consider filing an extension of your tourist or business visitor status. If your status has already expired and you were unable to leave timely because of circumstances beyond your control, consider filing an extension that's late and explain the reason for the late filing and ask the USCIS for forgiveness of the late filing under these circumstances. And if you need help with any of this, please don't hesitate to contact me or any of the attorneys at my office. Our phone number is 312-427-6163. Our website is www.mmhpc.com. We're happy to help. We're all working, I guess you can see, from home, but we are all working. And then next week, if you'd like to join me, I'll be discussing what specifically laid off H-1B workers should be doing if they want to remain in the United States lawfully, if they've recently been laid off as a result of the coronavirus. So again, if you're interested, next week on Friday at noon Central Time, I will be discussing here on Facebook Live the options for laid off H-1B workers and how to remain in the United States lawfully despite their layoff. Okay, stay safe, everyone. Thank you.